Hi, my name is Yuvan, and I'm going to talk about the fall in private investment in India in recent years and what impact it has, what are the challenges, and what can be done to tackle this. Almost all economists and policymakers are in agreement that private sector investment is a key pillar of economic growth in any country. However, India has seen a fluctuating private investment cycle in recent years. There have been peaks, but there have also been periods of stagnation and decline. A few schemes like the National Infrastructure Pipeline and Make in India have been there, but their impact has not been that significant. More recently, the Hindu reported how the Indian government will have to let a $23 billion production linked incentive scheme lapse because the firms that signed up under it did not even start production, and there were a few problems with subsidies as well. Now, these highlight the significant challenge that we are facing with respect to fostering private investment. But why is private investment important at all? Private investment can lead to a lot of growth and economic growth in a developing country like India. More investment by private firms has multiplier effects on the employment numbers. It can also improve the overall GDP and the productivity of a country. It can also foster a virtuous loop. When you think about it, more private investments will send the message that a country is easy to do business with, and that will lead to more private investments, which means more employment and more economic growth. Now, just historically, private investment has gone through many cycles in the country. The 1990s were the glory years, where after the LPG reforms, foreign direct investment made significant inroads along with general private investment in the country, which meant that the country was a more open and market friendly environment. As per a report in the BBC, however, private investment in India has declined since the global financial crisis of 2007, even though the economy has been growing overall. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic and the disruptions did not make things easy. The investment rate fell to its lowest in several years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Then the investment rate picked up in 2022 and 23, but this financial year that we are in has seen a decadal low in private sector investment, clocking in at just 33% of the overall investment as per an analysis by ICRA. Now, a few reasons because for this, as quoted by policymakers, is a huge number of non-performing assets in the bank, and also problem of demand being weak in the country. In the same article, the ICRA's chief rating officer is quoted as saying that weak domestic consumption in urban areas, muted export demand, and an influx of cheap Chinese imports has prevented capacity expansion by private companies. Now, the country has been making a few successful moves, and we talked about it in the beginning, like the Make in India spirit. But it can also take inspiration from, say, China, which has had special economic zones, which has spurred massive private sector investment. They can offer more tax exceptions, infrastructure support, and regulatory flexibility. These factors have enabled China transform into, as we know it now, to be the world's factory. The United Kingdom's private finance initiative and this is also something similar to what Australia did of the 1990s, where the government partnered with private companies to fund public infrastructure projects, is also a very helpful example where it indicates how to balance public needs with private sector and expertise. We can also think about green investments, inspired by efforts like the Panch Amrit scheme that was talked about in the Conference of Parties. Now, these ideas sound good on paper, but we should also look out for bottlenecks in the system. We could have a refined single window clearance system to make sure that business owners do not have to run from post to pillar to invest in the economy. We can think about something like Singapore's one-stop business portal to reduce such bureaucratic hurdles. Now, another barrier that we may face are the inertia from stakeholders and the resistance to change. So we have to ensure that the process is made transparent by having clear, transparent contracts out there, ensuring a fair distribution of risks, and using financial guarantees to ensure greater trust in the process. There have been some recent moves by the government that indicate that it recognizes this problem and it is ready to take concrete action. For instance, in the recent budget, there were some interest rate cuts and also a $12 billion income tax relief to boost private investment. However, we also have to realize that this is also going to take changing the mindset of investors from just looking for good returns to being entrepreneurial in spirit and foster greater private investment. The government may also have to work on fostering demand for goods and services among the public so that the supply side is taken care of eventually. So this is about private investment in India and how the fall is looking and what can be done going forward. Thank you so much.